At 5:45 in the morning, before anyone else in this house is awake, my grandmother is already standing at the stove with her hands in a bowl of flour. 15 people eat out of this kitchen today. 3 generations under one roof, and not one bite of it is coming from a package. No jarred sauce, no bagged bread, no box of anything. I'm going to walk you through the entire day, meal by meal, the way it actually happened, because watching it changed my whole idea of what a family kitchen is supposed to look like. Breakfast starts with bread that isn't for breakfast at all. It's for dinner 12 hours from now, and that gap is the first thing that surprised me about how this house runs. My grandmother mixes a loaf of ciabatta before 6 in the morning, because the dough needs the whole day to rise slowly on the counter, covered with a towel, moved out of direct sun as the light shifts through the kitchen. Flour, water, a small amount of yeast, salt, and thyme. That's the entire ingredient list, and the thyme is doing more work than any of the other 4. While that dough sits, actual breakfast comes together fast, because with this many people, you can't spend 2 hours on the first meal of the day. Eggs from a neighbor's chickens, a pan of them scrambled soft with a spoon of the previous night's tomato sauce stirred in at the end, and bread from yesterday, sliced and toasted directly on the stovetop grate instead of a toaster. Coffee brews in a stovetop mocha pot, 3 of them running at once to keep up with 15 people, and the smell of it fills the kitchen before anyone's even sitting down. By 8, the kids are at the table and the adults are mostly standing, coffee in hand, because there aren't enough chairs for everyone to sit for breakfast the way they will for dinner. That's a detail nobody explains in a recipe video, how a household actually organizes 15 bodies through a kitchen with 6 chairs. But it's the kind of logistics that shapes every meal here more than any ingredient does. By mid-morning, someone's walking to the market, not driving because it's close enough, and because buying only what's needed for that day is the whole point. Tomatoes, still warm from a greenhouse a few towns over. A block of Parmesan cut fresh off a wheel, not pre-shredded, not pre-packaged. A few fish if the catch looks good that morning, because lunch here shifts based on what's actually available, rather than a plan written down a week in advance. My grandmother's rule, translated roughly, is that the market decides the menu, not the other way around. That rule sounds almost quaint until you actually taste the difference it makes. A tomato picked and sold within a day of ripening tastes almost nothing like one that traveled 1,000 miles in a truck built to keep it firm instead of flavorful. The whole midday meal here gets built around whatever hit that sweet spot at the market that morning, which means the menu genuinely changes day to day, even though the family eats lunch together at the same table every single day of the year. Lunch, not dinner, is the largest meal of the day in this house, which surprised me the first time I sat down for it. Pasta made fresh that same morning, rolled out by hand on a long wooden board that's been in the family longer than anyone currently using it. Semolina flour, eggs, nothing else, kneaded until it stops fighting back under your hands and starts feeling smooth instead. It's cut into whatever shape the meal calls for, sometimes tagliatelle, sometimes a filled pasta if there's time, and an extra pair of hands to help fold it. The kneading itself takes longer than people expect. Easily 10 minutes of steady, deliberate work before the dough is ready to rest. My grandmother taught one of the younger grandkids to do it this year, guiding small hands through the motion, pressing with the heel of the palm, and folding back over again and again until the dough stopped tearing at the edges. She said you can always tell a dough that's been rushed because it fights back in the pot instead of cooking evenly, and there's no fixing that once it's already in boiling water. Feeding 15 people fresh pasta means the pot on the stove is enormous, easily big enough that one person alone couldn't lift it full of water. Someone's always stirring, someone's always checking a clock, because fresh pasta cooks in a fraction of the time dried pasta does, sometimes under 2 minutes, and overcooking it by even 30 seconds changes the texture of the whole dish. That timing pressure is part of why lunch takes real coordination among however many hands happen to be in the kitchen that day. The sauce underneath whatever pasta shape shows up that day is almost always simpler than people expect. Good tomatoes, olive oil, garlic, basil if it's in season, salt, and very little else. My grandmother's argument, and she said this to me more than once, is that a sauce with a long ingredient list is usually covering for tomatoes that weren't good enough to stand on their own. When the tomato is right, the sauce barely needs to do anything except get out of its way. At 1 o'clock, work stops, and everyone sits down together, all 15, at a table that gets extended with an extra board when the whole family's actually present. This is the one meal of the day nobody skips or eats standing up, and the conversation at that table runs longer than the meal itself most days. Lunch here is more than food. It's the one guaranteed hour the whole family spends in the same room, and every adult in the house treats protecting that hour as seriously as they treat the cooking itself. Fitting 15 people at one table isn't automatic either, and I watched it get solved slightly differently almost every day I was there. Kids sometimes ate at a smaller side table set up specifically for them, close enough to still be part of the conversation, but out from underfoot of the adults passing dishes back and forth. Chairs came from 3 different rooms in the house, mismatched on purpose, because nobody in this family has ever bought a matching dining set built for exactly 15. The table works because everyone treats making room as automatic, not because the house was designed around a family this size from the start. The afternoon doesn't slow down the way you'd expect after a meal that big. Within an hour of lunch ending, someone's already back in the kitchen prepping for dinner, because a meal built entirely from scratch for 15 people can't be rushed into existence at 6 in the evening. That ciabatta dough from this morning gets shaped and set for its second rise. Vegetables get washed and trimmed for whatever's going into that night's dish. If there's meat on the menu, it's often been marinating since the market run that morning, sitting in olive oil, garlic, and herbs since before lunch was even finished cooking. This is the part of the day that never makes it into a recipe video, because there's no single dramatic step to film, just a steady, quiet accumulation of small tasks that make dinner possible later without anyone having to rush. My grandmother calls it keeping the kitchen ahead of itself, staying one step in front of what the day actually needs, instead of scrambling to catch up when hunger arrives. The afternoon also has a rhythm that has nothing to do with cooking at all, and it took me a few days to notice it. Someone's always doing dishes from lunch, while someone else starts dinner prep, and someone else is usually outside, tending a small garden along the side of the house where a lot of the herbs and some of the vegetables actually come from. That garden is a genuine part of the supply chain for this kitchen, not a decoration, a few steps outside the back door instead of a drive to the market. And it means dinner sometimes changes at the last minute based on what's ready to be picked that afternoon, rather than what was planned that morning. By early evening, that morning's ciabatta finally goes into the oven, a small wood-fired one built into the side of the house that's older than the kitchen appliances inside. The bread bakes while dinner itself comes together on the stovetop, usually something lighter than lunch, a vegetable dish, maybe a simple protein, because after a midday meal that size, dinner is meant to close the day gently, rather than pile more onto it. By the time everyone's back at the table for dinner, that loaf that started as flour and water at 5:45 in the morning is finally sliced open, still warm, the crust cracking audibly when it's cut. 12 hours from a bowl of flour to a table of 15 people, and every single one of those hours mattered to how that bread turned out. What struck me most, watching this whole day unfold from breakfast to dinner, wasn't any single recipe. It was the rhythm underneath all of it, the way one meal's prep quietly feeds into the next one's, the way the whole day gets planned around keeping a kitchen this size running for a family, this large without anyone ever seeming rushed or overwhelmed. Nothing here is fast. Almost nothing here is convenient. And somehow, by the end of the day, every single meal made it to the table exactly when it needed to. I asked my grandmother near the end of that day if she ever thought about doing it differently, buying bread instead of baking it, using jarred sauce on the days the kitchen felt short on hands. She laughed and said she'd tried it once, decades ago. During a week she was genuinely too sick to cook, and every single person at that table noticed within one bite. She said that's the real answer to why she still does it this way. Not tradition for its own sake. Just 15 people who know exactly what the difference tastes like and won't let her forget it. She also told me something I didn't expect, which is that she doesn't actually think every family needs to cook exactly like this to eat well. What she actually cares about is less the from scratch part specifically, and more the attention behind it. The habit of actually noticing what's on the plate instead of letting a meal happen on autopilot. She said a family that sits down together for one real meal a week, cooked with care, is doing something most of the culture around fast, convenient food has quietly stopped expecting of anyone. This house just happens to do that 3 times a day, instead of once a week, mostly because there are enough hands to make it possible. So tell me in the comments what a normal day of eating looks like in your family, whether it's anything close to this or nothing like it at all. I'd love to know if anyone else grew up with a kitchen that ran on this same kind of quiet, all-day rhythm, because from everything I've seen, it's rarer than it used to be. And I don't think that's an accident.